Welcome to the Gen Z Marketer podcast, where we have marketing conversations and everything in between. Here we talk about marketing, branding, e commerce, and the power of integrated marketing communication. I'm your host, Jamia Umali, a strategist passionate and specializing in branding and marketing for e commerce. In this episode, we have our returning guest. So, last time we talked about the e commerce landscape in the Philippines and marketing. So, this time I invited her back so that we can talk about mega campaigns in the Philippines and how you can plan profitable, efficient, and cohesive campaigns. So, let's welcome back Lorraine Gazzingan. Hi, Lors. How are
Hi,
you?
Mia. I'm so happy to be back. Thank you so much for inviting me again to discuss one of the things that I'm passionate about, which is e commerce. I've been in the e commerce industry for at least 3 years, as far as I can remember. And I'm happy to share with everyone everything that I've learned in the past while working in the e commerce industry. So, yeah, let's get started.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Lors. I'm so excited to have you back. So, for those who haven't listened to the previous episode with Lors, just to give you a background, she and I actually used to work together. We worked in the same e-commerce agency, and ever since then, we have traversed into different paths, but we are still both working for e-commerce. Lors has experience, of course, in working for e-commerce here in the Philippines. So she has handled different brands in Lazada and Shopee, but mostly Lazada and specifically beauty brands. And for me, of course, as some of you know, I have worked mostly for fashion, and now I used to do e-commerce marketing, but now my focus is really more on branding. Conversation, as we said earlier, is quite different. The reason why I wanted to have this conversation with Lors is because we're already at the season of huge campaigns or mega campaigns, as some of us know it. It's the season of 11/11, 12/12, and it's really such a competitive and, how else should we say it, Lars? It's a competitive and
Landscape.
Uh,
Yeah.
and there's really a lot of promos and a lot of brands really want to, jump in the trend, especially of the holidays, because of course it's the holidays, sales quotas are higher than ever, and people are also more willing to spend
Yep.
during these mega campaigns, right?
Correct,
So
correct.
let's talk about that first, no? Let's tell like our listeners, let's talk about it, like how impactful are campaigns such as, of course, 11/11 and 12/12.
Okay, so in our previous episode where I was the guest there, I discussed e-commerce from different perspectives. So the first perspective would be from the brand side, and then the second would be uh from the e-commerce enabler side, and the third would be from the customer side. So from the brand side, Q4 campaigns are really the most exciting part of their period, because this is where they are expecting a lot of sales, and of course for them to hit their targets that are usually set really high, because they have a lot of expectations from these campaigns, since these are the biggest campaigns in the Philippine e-commerce landscape. So a lot of the brands would, do their promo schemes that would be very, very competitive, very, very attractive, and very, very generous, I would say, because Filipinos would love discounts, they would love freebies, a lot of freebies, and of course, different deals. And then from the e commerce enabler side, this, of course, would be our role is to really help out the brands to achieve their target. So a lot of efforts, a lot of preparations would really come in the 11/11 and 12/12. Like, you wouldn't imagine, e-commerce enablers preparing for these campaigns a month before. Like, the preparations would really go for months. Maybe at the start of Q3 already, they will be preparing already for the Q4 campaigns. And then, of course, we have our customers. So for customers, these campaigns would be something that they would really look forward to, because again, these are the biggest campaigns of the year, so they would expect more from the brand. And of course, the brand are really revving up, preparing a lot of things just to satisfy the demands of those customers. So one of the preparations that they would usually do is, of course, preparing their promo schemes or the deals. So those promo schemes are really strategically planned. So they have different objectives for 11/11. So for brands, first objective would be, of course, to increase customer awareness or to increase product awareness. Second would be to engage or re-engage their loyal customers as well and to recruit new buyers. And then, so those are the main objectives of the brands for both 11/11 and 12/12. So they can also, apart from those two that I mentioned, they would also take this opportunity to do new product launches. So when we say new product launches, it doesn't necessarily mean an entirely new product line. These can be like their gift sets or their exclusive sets that they would only like to sell during 11/11 and 12/12 to give more of that exclusivity and to entice buyers like, hey, these are only limited for this period of time, so you have to grab your chance and purchase these deals because it would take a long time for us again to sell them online again. So that's for the no, that's for the brand side. um Another perspective that I forgot to mention earlier was for the platforms such as Lazada and Shopee. So for them, of course, driving a lot of traffic to their platforms, that's one of their main objectives. So what they do is they entice or encourage the brands to do more compelling offers so that it would drive more traffic to their platforms and make the shoppers stay there for a long time. So shoppers would have a lot of options. They would go to different stores before they are able to purchase a product or products that they would like. And of course, since this is the Q4 campaign, they would use this opportunity as well to buy products for their loved ones. They would also buy gifts for their family and friends. So Q4 campaigns are really something that everyone in the e-commerce ecosystem are really looking forward to.
Yeah, I like how you said all of those things, Lars, because I completely agree with you on how these campaigns really impact, like what you said, everyone on the ecosystem. And
Oh,
like first with the brands, of course, especially, I'm gonna share an experience that I've had, especially working with like on the brand side before. Usually when you set your sales quotas, it's really different per month or per quarter, because there are some quarters that are more profitable than others. Like I think I'm not sure if you would agree or disagree, Lars. I think Q4 is the most profitable, at least for most
yes,
industries, and Q1 is the least profitable. It is
yes,
the least profitable, because simply because, of course, also of the like social circumstances during Q4 and Q1. Like what we said also, Q4 is the holiday season.
yeah.
So yeah. So of course, yeah, we talked about, that how Q4 and Q1, all of those differences. And we, of course, all year round about here in the Philippines, at least, we both have like experience, or we both agree how here in the Philippines it's more like promo frenzy, we would say. Like there's always like a 1-1, a 2-2, a free campaign. There's always a payday sale. Like every month or every week, there seems to be like a sale in Lazada or Shopee, right? So
Yeah.
when we talk about like all of those campaign periods, like other than the mega campaigns that we have on the holidays,
Mhm.
which campaign would you say is the most profitable? Like, do you also agree with what we said previously, that it's really Q4 that is
Yeah,
most profitable and Q1 is the least? Or do
yeah.
you have other insights on how each quarter is different in terms of sales and profitability?
Okay, that's a good question, actually, James. I agree that Q4 is the most profitable because all of the trade investments of the brands and, of course, Lazada and Shopee would really be poured into Q4 since that's like their last hurrah. Since it's also the holiday season, of course, the seasonality has to be considered. The least profitable, I would say, would be Q1. Like, it's really slow. The sales are super slow. That's why Lazada and Shopee would come up with these small pocket campaigns like the payday sale For Lazada, they have the Women's Fest, Men's Festival, Legit Salasmo, which happens every first of the month. And I think for Q1, this is also where the purchasing power of the people are not as high as compared to their purchasing power in Q4, because in Q4 that's usually when the employers would give out Christmas bonuses, 13th month pay. So it varies. It really varies on the purchasing power and the seasonality. So for Q1, it's quite slow. So brands would do different campaigns as well. So they would also do their own product launches, Chinese New Year campaigns on Q1 just to rev up their sales, just to spike their sales. And then Q2, it would slowly pick up because in Q2 you would have the mid-year sale for Lazada and Shopee, and then Q3 it would be like the it would be like the campaign that's closest to Q4. So that's when sales would really significantly increase. Like for Lazada, they would see like probably 3x uplift from their previous campaign, something like that. But there's a significant uplift in sales. So in Q3, your biggest campaign would be 99. So for some e-commerce enablers, they would also do their own campaigns that would involve the brands that they're servicing. So one of those campaigns would be the gifting campaign. So gifting campaign for one of the companies that I work for starts usually on November or sometimes as early as October. So it really depends on the strategies of the e-commerce enablers and the brands on how they would increase their sales while waiting for 11/11 and 12/12 campaigns.
I actually agree with all what you said because really those are, I think, the key factors when it comes to these campaigns. Like what you said, it's seasonality and the purchasing power or the situation, right?
Yep.
And I like how you said that it's really quite different per quarter, which is why I think this is also a reminder to brands that considering these parameters or these factors, we need to set manageable or realistic quotas as well,
Yep.
because I think, I think, yeah, it really it differs per month, per season, per quarter. So, for you to make sure that you're profitable, or for you to make sure that you're meeting your quotas, you're selling your product, you really just need to make sure of these external factors, and at the same time timing. Timing, I think, is everything. Every month, no, every season, every quarter, every month, every week, or even every day, there's already a promo, right? You could almost say that we have a promo culture here wherein we anticipate the promos, the discounts, and even the vouchers, right? Like every day there's something different happening at this
Yep.
point.
Yep.
So, in this industry and for brands, of course, how do you prevent promo exhaustion? Or like what we talked about in timing, how do you, time your promos? How do you decide, how do you prevent that exhaustion from customers wherein they already expect that you always have a promo because you don't want to be known as a brand for its promo.
Yep, yep, correct. And I think that one of the things that the brand also has to consider is how will their promo strategies affect them in the short run and in the long run. Because, for example, a brand would do massive discounts on their products or maybe on selected products. But the thing is, in the long run, people are going to continue expecting that they're going to give out a lot of discounts, which might hurt their brand equity. And of course, the if you're a premium brand, then it would hurt um your status for being a premium brand. So usually what brands would do is to examine the different SKU performances or product performances, which products have the high potential to be their best seller. So, two things on how to determine the potential best sellers are to either check out the products that have the highest page views but low conversion rate. So, meaning there are a lot of people looking at your product, but they're not convinced. That's why they're not buying those products. Or the second one would be high conversion rate but low page views, meaning there are some people or a few people who are checking out your product, and a lot of them are buying your product. So it means that you're doing something good in that category. So you have to cultivate your potential bestsellers to see how they would perform if you give them an extra push. So when we say extra push, cultivating your potential bestsellers, you would have to either bundle them up with other products by cross selling. Like, for example, if you're a beauty brand and you sell lip and face products, then you might probably want to cultivate your potential bestseller with other categories as well. So that's one of the things that brands do for them to be able to prevent that promo exhaustion. But it's always a challenge for brands to come up with something new so that their customers would look something forward to whenever they would visit the brand store on Lazada and on Shopee. So it would be really good for them to constantly looking out for the potential bestsellers. But of course, that does not mean that they would have to let go of their bestseller or their hero product. Of course, the hero product, the presence of those hero products should always still be there to maintain the branding of your products, and of course to maintain the customer loyalty. Because of course, if you're in an FMCG industry, people would always replenish their stocks. Let's say you're selling beauty products again, then they would have to replenish their stocks, let's say on serums or on lipsticks or those products that would be consumed in 1 month or 2 months time. But if, let's say, you're in the slow moving category, like for example electronics, then you would have to find ways on how to create strategies for you to be able to sell more. So this is where your marketing would come in. Like, how would you remind the customers that, hey, our products still stand out from our competitors because the following are our unique selling propositions. So it boils down on what kind of brand you are, like what are your long-term and short-term strategies, and how would you remain relevant to the consumers, especially now that both marketplaces are constantly adding new sellers, maybe on a monthly basis. So, let's say you are a big brand, and it doesn't mean that since you're a big brand, it doesn't mean that you're just competing with other big brands as well. You're also competing with the small brands or perhaps resellers of your products, right? So those resellers can sell your product at a cheaper price. So you have to remind the customers that, hey, our products are authentic. These are the features of our products. That's why it really boils down on your marketing strategies.
Okay, so I actually really like what you said, because if there's one thing really that brands really need to think of at first is, of course, their identity, their branding and positioning. So who are
Exactly.
they and what is their positioning? Are they prestige? Are they mass, or maybe masstige, which is in between, right? Because those factors can also, those factors highly influence like how you do your marketing campaigns, how you do your promos.
True.
And I think looking back, you don't want to be like, let's say, a prestige brand who's always doing promos, because that's gonna affect perception. Like, people are gonna think, oh, are they no longer prestige because they're doing these promos? So, you have to make sure that when you're doing your promos or your marketing even, it has to, connect or be related to your branding. And
Yep.
then I also like how you mentioned, basically, when it comes to promos, most of us think, or the usual promos are really discounts and vouchers, but there are other kinds of promos, like what you said, cross selling or bundling, which is basically you introducing your bestseller SKUs together, maybe from different categories in one set, or you can introduce even new items basically, or freebies. Sometimes you also have GWP or gifted purchase. So
Correct.
there is really other ways for you to have promos, not just discounts or vouchers, but you can also introduce, of course, your your bundling, your freebies and whatnot. And I think that's also one thing that we can consider when it comes to promo exhaustion. There has to be variety in what you do. And
Correct.
you should always, like, I would say, like, expect the unexpected. Like, you want to introduce something new or something different or something with value every
Yeah.
time you're doing these things, because you don't want to just have the same old promos or have the same old strategies to the point that people already expect it, because that's already what's happening with these platforms, with Lazada and Shopee. People
Correct.
already have these expectations that, okay, you have your 11/11, you have your 12/12, you have your payday sale, you have your, like, I don't know, cashback Tuesday or something. People
Correct.
already have expectations, and it's not, there's nothing wrong with meeting those expectations, but everyone is already doing it. Like what you said, even there are small sellers coming in, small businesses coming in. Everyone is in the same wavelength or calendar, so you have to differentiate yourself. You still have to add value, because other
Correct.
because otherwise, if you don't, people are gonna look at the other promos. People are gonna look at the other brands. So you still have to have that differentiation. You don't do things just because, or just follow the calendar. You still have to differentiate. And just to share with you, Loris, in
Yeah.
one of the places that I worked with, although I probably feel like you know who this is, but I
Okay.
remember when I was working there, the promos were so typical, so consistent. It's nothing new. Like, it's
Mhm.
always any 2 for 999. Um
Mhm.
it's always like any 2 for 1 499, or like they just do it like in different months, in different seasons, and then in different stores, for
Mhm.
offline at least, or for on.
Mhm.
So there's that expectation already. So in a way, I feel like maybe our customers would see as, oh, they're eventually going to have that buy one take one sale anyway. So, let's
Yeah.
just wait for it. So you don't wanna be that kind of brand. You don't wanna have that kind of business.
Correct, correct. I agree with you because people are just, for them, it's gonna be okay. When's the next sale again? That's when I'm gonna buy. But they're not gonna be like, oh, it's 11/11. I know that there's only a set of exclusive deals that I can avail from. So they're really gonna look forward to that. But if it's gonna be repetitive, there's gonna be promo exhaustion, and you as a brand also will experience exhaustion because you're going to be putting a lot of efforts in managing your inventory, allocating your inventory, investing in marketing, planning your marketing ads, and you know, it's not going to be all worth it because you won't be able to hit your target. So you really have to do something different every time you have a campaign so that customers would see, there's something different in this store. It's not going to be repetitive as well. So that's, if you have a wide assortment, especially if you have different categories, that's a huge opportunity for you to play your products and assortments with. So how are you going to play or try to experiment on your assortment? That's where your data would come in. So what your data is going to tell you, like, these are the potential bestsellers, these are your cash cows, these are your slow moving inventory, these are the products that you should have promos in, like bundle them up with slow moving. You can bundle fast moving with slow moving, or probably if it's a product line, then you can bundle up your top two SKUs in that product line and see and give a little discount. Like, you don't have to give massive discounts all the time, but if the customer sees like there's a slash off, or if there's like a 10% discount, they're still gonna buy the products as long as they're willing to try it, as long as the brands would showcase these products in such a way that would attract the customers. And the next question would be, how would you attract your customers to buy? That's where your platform tools would come in. So, for example, for Lazada, they have Lorikeet. So, Lorikeet is an extensive description of what your product does, what are the benefits of your brand, and what of that product, and what are the benefits of shopping with that brand. So, that's another tool. Second would be like what you mentioned earlier, it's the vouchers. So vouchers, usually the brands would be smart on doing their vouchers, on approaching their vouchers. They know that, for example, their average selling price of the products would be, let's say, 1,300. So one of the upselling strategies that brand would do, or basket building strategies that brand would do, is to increase the minimum spend requirement on the voucher for them to be able to get a certain discount. So going back to my example, let's say it's 1,300. So for you to be able to get that voucher, you have to spend like minimum of 2,000 to for you to try that product or to get that voucher, and then that's when you're gonna get a discount or maybe a freebie even. So it's more about approaching it in a smarter way, because you just don't want to be selling your products, you want to also upsell your products to increase your sales. So when customers upsell, or when customers buy more products, sometimes they would just buy just to get that voucher, even if it means spending more for them. But at least for them, they would experience, I was able to get this for a certain discount. But in reality, people are spending more in your store, which is good, because for you as a seller, you also get to introduce other products to your customers, and for your customers, they also get to try those products even if they don't intend to buy them in the first place, but because of the voucher, they're able to purchase it. So that's one of the powerful things that vouchers can do, to increase your basket size and for customers to try out other products aside from the freebies, because the freebies can be related to your product. So when you say related to your product, it can be like mini sizes or travel sizes or sample sizes of your products, or it can also be somewhat adjacent to the product that you're selling. So for example, you're selling hair care products. So you might want to introduce perhaps like a hair tie, or sometimes the brands would go big on their freebies. Like sometimes they would give out hair straightener, hair blower. So those gifts are are free for the customers. They don't have to spend to buy those non-related products, but you make your gifts as a brand really exciting for your customers, for them to purchase your products as well. So sometimes if the gift is really worth a lot, like for example the hair straightener, probably it would cost the brands to at least 2,000 pesos. So the brand would strategize it in a way like, if the customer spends at least 3,000 pesos, they get this freebie. So in the same manner that the vouchers also, how vouchers also work, but this time these are freebies. So as a customer, again, you would be forced to like purchase more products because you want to hit that minimum threshold just to be able to get that really enticing freebie.
So I actually like what you said, no, you about having to be really smart with your promos,
Mm-hmm.
because if you want to make sure you avoid promo exhaustion, if you want to meet your branding identity and your marketing and make your promos compelling, you really have to be smart and really strategize this. And also at the same time, I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that promos affect the perceived value of your brand.
Agree.
So like what we said earlier, if you make it too obvious, too simple, and how do I say it, too common, it affects like the perception of you being like cheap, or affordable, or all of those things. Like you really have to be mindful of how you craft your promos. And I like what Lors gave, like all of her examples, because there's really a more like a different or a smarter way to go about with your promos. Like it's not
Yeah,
like you don't have to. I mean, simple is great. Like simple and easy to understand is great, but
correct,
sometimes you have to be creative to offer something new to the table, to make things more interesting and
correct,
differentiated in the market, right?
correct.
Yeah. So let's talk about like those strategies a bit more later. Like how you get customers to spend more, all of those different strategies. And let's go back to one thing that we talked about earlier, about how timing is really important with promos and strategies. And of course here in the Philippines, at least, when it comes to like these mega campaigns like 11, 11, 12, 12, I remember, look, when I was still working in the local e-commerce space, how important the time slot is. And of
Um,
course, pre-pandemic, right? I remember that there was that shift in behavior, right? Before, 12 a.m. sales weren't that much of a thing, but now it is. Like you have your quote unquote salubong, wherein you stay up until 12 just so that you can get the best promos, and then you add to cart. And usually, like that 12 to 4 a.m. slot is the most profitable. I'm curious to know. Basically, of course, we had these insights pre-pandemic, and I'm not sure if it's still the same. And based even on your latest experiences, like how much of an impact the time slots have, if they still have impacts, or at this point, even for time slots, there's already like an exhaustion. Like, oh, you can basically set your promo slots anytime because people will always buy. Like, I want to know how
mm,
important like time is. It still
correct.
as like important like before, we're in 12 noon, you have to have like the biggest or the best promos in midnight, or is it quite different now?
Oh, actually, it's still relevant and it's somewhat similar to the current landscape, like the most recent, like the biggest share of business brands would expect is gonna be from the time slot 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. And that's when the BMO time slots also of Lazada would come in. So for the BMO time slots, these are the time slots that they perceive that have the higher visitorship in their platforms. That's why
Yeah.
they entice the brands to either give deeper discounts on these time slots or give more freebies. So let's say brands can have all day gifts, and then for BMO time slots, if the customer purchase says at that time, then they would have an additional gift. So what are the time slots? These are 12 to 2 a.m. Some of the brands would experience high visitorship also in the morning. So 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 12 to 2 p.m., 4 to 6 p.m., and then 8 p.m. to 12 midnight. So the
Yeah.
reason why they also put BMO time slot in the morning because they know that not a lot of customers would stay up late, like 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., assuming that they have jobs the next day, right? So they would like to purchase it early in the morning and then sometimes during lunch breaks, so 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., and then probably downtime after work 4 to 6 p.m. And then they also have last chance to buy, which is going to be from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight. So at least for the brands that I was able to handle, we would see high share of business between 12 to 2 a.m., 8 to 10, 12 to 2 p.m., not so much anymore, and then a little bit at 4 to 6, and then it would start to pick up again at 8 p.m. to 12 midnight. But it again, it would depend on the kind of promo, the kind of gifts, the kind of additional promos that you would implement in those time slots. Or sometimes the brands would also do live streaming on those time slots. So
Yeah.
live streaming is a really good chance for them to entice more buyers because while you're watching the live stream, the products would be showcased on the live stream page while you're watching it. So you can add to cart from that page already. And then it's really smart. This tool of Lazada and Shopee is really smart because you can add to cart directly and then you can visit your cart later on, or sometimes they would offer vouchers that are only exclusive to the live stream viewers. So that's also something that brands should consider. And when we talk about live streaming, shoppertainment is really big here in the Philippines. As in, if you
Yeah.
would get a huge influencer and then you would also put promos during the live stream, then that's a huge plus for you. We would often experience a spike in the traffic that we get in the store whenever we do live streaming. But then again, it would depend on the KOL. If the KOL is kind of boring, then don't expect too much. But if the KOL is very engaging, then that's a good live stream content. So on at least the benchmark for us is if we would get at least 1,000 viewers, then that's already a good indication that it's a good live stream. It's an effective live stream. So brands can explore on that later on or in the succeeding campaigns. But then again, live stream would depend also on the availability of the time slots in the platform because a lot of brands, of course, would like to take advantage of the live streaming. So the brands should plan really way ahead of time for them to be able to get that slot. So it's not just about the promos, but we're also gonna be have to consider the marketing side of it. So when we say marketing, it's not just about the ads, but also how you're going to place your live stream slots. So sometimes the brands would do 11 the day before the campaign. They would do around 11 p.m. or 8 p.m. just to remind the customers that, hey, you have to add to cart now, so that when it when 12 a.m. strikes, or when 12 a.m. comes, that's when you get the best offers. So there.
I actually like how you said, like when it comes to the time slots.
Mm.
I think one of the things I remember you saying is that 12 to 2 isn't doing 12 to 2 p.m. at least is not doing as well as it used to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because I remember pre-pandemic we were talking about lives, right? And that's one of the things I used to do, like the Facebook lives or the lives with Lazada and the brands.
Mhm.
And it used to be like 12 to 2 p.m. was still quite a good slot, simply because it's the lunch break usually of people working in the office.
Yep.
So
Yep.
think
Correct.
it's interesting how you said it's different now because I think maybe the work from home setup is a factor. I mean, maybe the reason why people, access like these apps on different time slots now is because they're basically home and they have most of the time they can do it anytime. Even I think the commute time is quite different now. So I think if we have one takeaway from this is that consumer behavior constantly changes.
Yep.
Therefore, you always or you have to be in tune with your audience or your target market, and you have to continuously, like, learn or update your insights about them because the behavior would change. And the behavior is even different per category, right? I think
Yep.
there are certain categories that do well in certain time slots and others
Yep.
wouldn't be the same. So I think, we need to remind, of course, everyone that, of course, your brand, your category, and your audience would really also impact these time slots and timing, that you really have to evaluate which is best for you and your audience. Because
Correct.
what might work for another brand or another category will not work for you.
Correct, correct. That's true. And what I noticed also, because I recently attended the ceremony of Lazada where they give, or where they honor the top brands per category, is that the brands are really actively participating in the different Lazada platform tools. So like what I mentioned, the vouchers, the lorry kit, the free shipping, everything, and even the live streaming. So
Yeah.
that's also a huge factor. And sometimes the brands would avail these marketing packages of Lazada and Shopee ahead of time. So
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, they have these gold, platinum, silver packages, and I think
Yeah.
platinum is the most expensive one. So if you're gonna invest highly in a certain package, your expectation would be the return on investment would also be high. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not sure if that's entirely true. It depends on different factors. Again, your product assortment, promo strategies, and everything.
Yeah.
But with these marketing packages, they give you extra push for you to be visible even
Yeah.
more in the platform and outside the platform. So in the platform, of course, the homepage banners would give a huge importance as well, and a huge push to drive more traffic to your store. Then the offline placements, that would be the social media of Lazada, of Shopee, and even sometimes they're gonna feature you in their IG stories, feature you in their FB posts. And Lazada and Shopee have a huge traction in their social media
Yeah.
platform. So that's also something that brands can take a look at if they really want to go big on 11/11 and 12/12.
Yeah, that's true. I like how you said that because it's really highly competitive, and I remember these packages being really expensive. So
Yeah.
yeah, but like what you said, usually they do well. So I think ultimately, but I remember you mentioning also how usually these are like some of these initiatives are in platform, like the lives, the banners. And I think it's interesting to note how I mean I remember asking you this in the last episode, so I will ask again just to
Sure.
see if something has changed. Like you know, basically, is it best to like invest in those like Lazada or Shopee, like, marketing initiatives, like in platform initiatives? Or do you think, those external platforms, like what you said, Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok is
Mm.
still like a worthy investment now? Like,
For
what do you think of
For me, if you're a new brand, or let's say, for example, for ELC, because ELC has different brands like MAC, Estee Lauder, Bobby Clinic, Origins. If you don't have a huge budget, you can avail one package and then you can just divide it into those brands to see how it would pan out. Then maybe in the succeeding campaigns, that's where you invest more once you see that there's a really effective marketing ad
that?
that you get from investing these packages. But sometimes the brands, if they have a lot of budget, why not? Like they would really go for it as long as they also have enough inventory to support their products during campaigns, because sometimes that's one of the dilemmas of our brands, like they don't have enough stocks to support these campaigns. So when they see in their add to cart data that there are a lot of customers adding these products to their cart and they don't have enough stock supportability, then that would, be a huge miss on the part of the brand, because that's a sales loss. It's an opportunity that they should have grabbed, but because of this dilemma, they weren't able to milk the sales out of those products. So it's also huge help if they're going to invest a lot in their marketing, but you have to make sure that Lazada is also pushing a lot of traffic. So sometimes the brands would check out how much percent is being driven by the brand and how many percent is being driven by Lazada. So the goal should be, of course, more from Lazada since they have more traction, right?
Yeah.
Have more followers, so maybe like a 70-30. But what's happening now probably for some brands is 50-50. So the reason why they invested in those marketing packages, because they're expecting 70% from Lazada and 30%
Yeah.
from their brands, right? So you have to check the performance as well after you invest on the marketing side of it. And probably if you can push further Lazada and Shopee to give you more placements, just to make sure that you are investing properly, and just to make sure that you're getting the most out of your investment. So you really have to talk to your CAMs, your account managers on those platforms. Like if this doesn't pan out well, what would be our contingency plan? What placements can you also give us on top of the placements that you have initially given us? So it's more of the negotiation, making sure that you have a good relationship with your account managers there so that they're able to fight for those placements for your brands.
Right. I actually like what you said. And if there's one thing that I would add, no, I think the behavior is also different for, let's say, external or social media marketing versus like in platform marketing. Because I
Correct.
think when it comes to in platform marketing, there's already that intent to purchase because they're in the platform already. So I
Correct.
think it's easier to convert. And when you're there, you have to make sure that they do convert. So how do you do it? Other than your promos and your, offers, you have to
Mhm.
make sure that even your listing is, enticing. Your photo, your video, and the copy, the content. You have to have A plus content, right? It's
Correct.
that's one way to look at it. Like, how like in platform marketing works. Like you have to make sure that there's already intent, so you have to like seal the deal. You have to make sure that you do your part there, other than of course the packages that the platforms have.
Correct.
And
Correct.
then for external marketing, like of course your social media, your YouTube, I think that's more of engagement, getting social proof, or that's, awareness, right? I think while you can still convert with social media, I mean, here in the Philippines, we're still really a highly Facebook country. While you can still convert or get people to visit your Lazada or your Shopee or your website from these platforms, I think, the way that you campaign or the way you design it is quite different because, yeah, awareness and engagement is different from conversion. Like once they move to that different touch point or that different, channel,
Mm-hmm.
the strategy is quite different. So I think, ultimately, like what you said, these channels complement each other. This could be like a 50-50, 70-30, whatever sort of thing. But
Correct.
ultimately, you also have to make sure that that experience from start to end, or that whole purchasing experience, is cohesive, is complementary, and it makes sense. Because
Correct.
let's say, if let's say like you have a social media ad, if you have a Facebook ad, and then you have the wrong link, and then they click on, it's not what they're expecting, you already have a lost conversion right there.
Correct.
Or let's say they do click on the right link, but then your listing is incomplete. Like the product photos are so, there's no video, there's no, like the information or the copy of the listing is limited, then there's lost conversion there as well. So
Correct.
ultimately, our advice, I think this was also same with what we did last time, is ultimately you make sure these touch points, these channels are all complementary. They all make sense. They're all in branding. You know, don't forget each touch point, and even delivery is somewhat technically a touch point also in that unboxing experience. So
Correct.
you really have to look at everything and make sure it all makes sense. Don't forget one thing. Like let's say you're doing well on ecom and then the delivery is subpar, then that's another different thing, right? But yeah, you have
Yeah.
to look at
Yeah.
all of those things. I think that's how really different e-commerce is for, of course, offline or brick and mortar, right?
Correct, correct. Because for e-commerce, since there's the delivery thing that you have to consider, then you have to make sure that the packaging is well wrapped. Like it's not just bubble wrap and then you're not sure if the contents inside are already spilling, because sometimes before they ship it out the products are in good condition, but when the customer receives their order, then that's a time when they're gonna find out, oh no, there's a broken cap in the product, or like there's a spillage inside, so it won't give you a really good experience or customer experience, and that customer has the power to write a review about everything that they have experienced in the store. They're not just writing a review about the product, but their overall experience as a customer in your store, and that would be an indication if you have really taken care or satisfy the needs and the wants of the customer.
So, of course, we already talked about the different campaigns, and promos and strategies that really get customers to spend more.
Cool.
My
Yeah.
next question is really more on, let's talk about a bit more on the consumer behavior when it comes
Yeah.
to this. And my question is, how similar or different are consumer behaviors based on category? I mean, we already talked about this earlier, like, for beauty or electronics or FMCG, the behaviors are different. So I want to know what insights do you have that makes like these categories similar or different with the consumer behavior?
Okay. So I think one of the distinguishing factors that set a brand apart is in what category does it fall? Because if it falls under FMCG, then we would expect that customers would be replenishing their products. But if we are in the electronics or the high value products that don't really need replenishment because they're not super, the customers won't consume them fast, then those companies or brands would have to look at different ways on how to upsell different products. So if let's say you're selling a laptop, then one of the next moves that you should be doing is upselling the accessories that would be related to your laptop, such as the mouse or a very nice keyboard or speakers or probably your webcam or something to do or something that revolves around it. When we say customer behavior in the different categories, they are the same in a way that they're gonna look for promos, but they're also different in a way that they would expect better consumer customer service when it comes to high value products, because when we say high value products, of course, premium beauty would fall under this, electronic would fall under this, other consumer goods would also fall under this, that would have the high price as well. So customers would really be looking at different factors before they considering buying those products, because they are high value products. They really want to know more about the products, what benefits, like what would make me buy it, to make sure that these products are all worth it. It's all worth the money that I'm paying for. Compared to, let's say, items that are not high value items, like for example, probably a temporary tattoo sticker, because that's what I've been searching
Yeah.
for in the past few days. I don't really care if the customer service is not good, as long as I get to buy these things, and as long as I get to receive them in the fastest way possible, like perhaps the next day delivery, or in 2 days time I would be able to receive these products already. But of course, it's a different story if the consumer is not satisfied with the product. Of course, the consumer would be reaching out to the customer service. I'm not satisfied with this. Of course, this can be subjective. They would ask, what are the different ways to like uh uh, resolve this dilemma. So sellers would be able to create different contingency plans. Like they can probably send another item, or give them like a 5% voucher discount in their next purchase, because the customer might receive a broken product, or the customer can just do a return and refund type of thing. So it really depends. But if we compare the online consumer behavior with offline, I would say there's a really huge difference. With offline, they don't really expect a lot of freebies. That's why brands would play the words, it's online exclusive, or it's only 11/11 Lazada exclusive, or Shopee exclusive, because they don't really offer promos such as freebies, discounts on their offline stores, because they don't really expect people to be buying offline because of the pandemic, right? That's why they're giving the customers an additional incentive when they purchase online. So I think that's a huge difference between offline and online consumer behavior. And with offline, another thing is, of course, they would receive the product right away, right? So the wrapping would also be different, the paper bag would also be different compared to online. There are some brands that would customize their packaging on top of the outer box that they're putting their products in, just to extend that offline customer experience. Even with their packaging, they really spend a lot, and brands would have to forecast if they have enough packaging supplies, because if they're already highlighting the packaging in their SIS, or in their shop in shop, then of course customers would expect something more, right? Especially for premium products. But if your products are not on the premium side of things, it can be like a masstige brand, then the customers wouldn't be expecting a lot with the packaging. So I guess that's two of the main differences that we have when we compare online and offline consumer behavior.
Right. I like what you said about like online exclusivity, because
Yeah,
I think even pre-pandemic, one of the things that, or at least for our culture, I remember we also talked about this in the previous episode, is that here in the Philippines, we have like a mall culture wherein people
yeah,
really prefer shopping offline. People prefer going to the mall, going to stores and shopping and looking at items. And I think I remember we said how the pandemic somewhat, boosted the interest in e-commerce and kind of made that interest or shift to online shopping like faster compared to how it was pre-pandemic. But at the same time, right now I think, offline is starting to pick back up again. We're starting to loosen our restrictions, right? So I think it's interesting also to see, how whether the behavior would still be the same, or offline will still be somewhat king here in the country, and how e-commerce would be like
correct,
once we loosen those restrictions, and basically how do you make online shopping more still compelling, right? Other than the promos, like how do you still encourage people to shop online if they can already go back to the stores, right? So I think that's also
correct,
an interesting or one way to look at it, because the reason why I think ecom did well for the past 2 years at least is because of the restrictions, because of the
Correct.
pandemic. I mean, that's really a good thing, at least for the e-commerce industry. But of
Correct.
course, it would be interesting to see how in the next few months whether we sustain or continue that growth, or would there be another shift again in consumer behavior, right?
Correct, correct. Like consumers actually would go for the fast moving ones. Let's say the beauty products, especially because for beauty products, they would really not go out as much as they did before pandemic because of the issues now with the safety and everything, the security and stuff. So they would do at home beauty regimen, and they would really stock up on beauty essentials since they just really want to take care of themselves while they are at home. And a lot of brands are capitalizing on these skincare regimens, on this type of consumer behavior. So if they see that the skincare category is fast moving, that's where they're going to invest more, especially in their ads, where they would highlight more of these beauty products rather than highlighting their other categories within the store. So that's one of the consumer behaviors that I've noticed from working in the premium beauty sector or premium beauty category in my previous job. So yeah, with electronics, I would say that, there people would be more into putting their workspace more enticing, because a lot of us are still working from home, and even if the restrictions are not that um limiting anymore, people would still have that feeling of, well, I'm able to do my work from home. I'm still productive at home, so I'm not really vouching for going back to the office anytime soon. So yeah, there are a lot of emerging trends. Sometimes you would see dalgona coffee everywhere, and I think TikTok plays a huge role in making things go viral, because when people see that this is the trend, that's what the brands would go for. Like, what's the latest trends? Where are the customers going to? Or like, what are the customers raving about at these times? So that's what they're gonna play on. Like for example, Squid Game, that's a huge hit on Netflix. And now I've been seeing people buying costumes, Halloween costumes of the Squid Games cast, or sometimes the honeycomb. They would also do that at home. So before it's not a big thing, but now after watching that TV series or that TV show, a lot of people are already making videos viral about the Squid Game. So there are a lot of trends that sometimes brands wouldn't able to see unless a certain social media platform would make it viral.
So actually, like I like what you said also about like when it comes to trends and whatnot outside of, e-commerce. And I actually thought of one more thing when it comes to consumer behavior. Although this is, I think, more relevant to my current work experience, which is I do, e-commerce or branding for Amazon. So it's really a different landscape for local e-commerce. And one thing I learned in Amazon at least
Mm-hmm,
is that when it comes to like niches or categories,
mm-hmm.
there's really, like what you said, there's really a difference in each niche or each category, like how the consumer behaviors are. There
Right.
are some categories or niches that are more mature
Yep.
than others, some that are more competitive than others. So, okay, for example, like let's say the product is boxing gloves. What I found, like when it comes to consumer behavior or search behavior specifically, people do look for some brand specific products, but there are some people that look for like size specific products, like let's say 12 ounces, 16 ounces.
Mm-hmm,
So that tells you that there are some top of mind brands, but at
mm-hmm,
the same time, there are still like let's say product specific or feature specific things that customers look for.
mm-hmm.
And then let's say for another product, let's say for skincare, some people use or look for specific, like let's say Korean skincare, or look for like Asian, like specific countries or specific brands. And then there are some industries like that are not as mature. There are no top of mind brands yet. There are no specific features yet or whatnot. So I just shared that because I think it's also interesting to look at, and what we've talked about really is that each niche or each category is different in behavior, in maturity, and in customer perception. And like what we said, what they're looking for is different per category. Like some people look for brand specific already. There's one nga, Lors,
Mhm.
product specific even. Like SKU specific. This is for hair dry specifically, at least in Amazon. It's so specific to the point that people are looking specifically for the Dyson Airwrap or the
Ooh.
Revlon hairbrush like dryer. So, I remember when I was doing that, I was like, what? Like there's like product specific search already. So
Mhm.
you can tell that the hair dryer market in Amazon is like that mature or that top of mind, like that sophisticated for people to look for a specific product already, right?
Correct.
So I think that of course that's not applicable to the local e-commerce space, but I think you could technically do that at least for keyword search or for Google search. I'm not sure if that's still like if people still do it that way or use it that way, but if you have a takeaway really like what we said, the behavior is different per category, per audience, if there's brand specific, feature specific. And I
Mhm.
think it's up to us marketers and here in the industry to figure out what those customers are looking for, what's most relevant or important to them,
Mhm.
and then constructing our campaigns or strategies based on those insights.
Correct.
Because I also like we also talked about how it's important to consider your stock data or your historical data on the platforms. But one thing also I really want people to take away, you also need to get your consumer insights, like those nuances that what they're looking for, because those can really make a difference. Like you can find opportunities and gaps in the market when you find those nuances, those insights.
Correct, correct. That's really the power of data, I would say. And we in the e-commerce enabler side will really bank on the data that we're getting, especially for the teasing period, because it gives us a view of what products are fast selling, what products are behind the targets, how much expected sales can we get, how much projected sales can we get, how many people are viewing the products, how many people are adding to cart, how much of these people or how much add to cart data sales are we going to expect to convert or check out on DD. And
Yeah.
sometimes the benchmark would be around 30%. So if we say that, okay, this 30% that's going to convert on D-Day, it won't hit our sales target, then that's the time that we're going to plan already on optimizing during D-Day or the day itself. So what optimizing strategies can we do are the following. So we can add more gifts, we can add more BMO time slots, we can introduce new products during D-Day, we can stock up more on those products that have high add to cart units, or sometimes you can also do live streaming and stuff like that. So there's really a lot of things that you can do with data if you use it properly.
Yeah, I agree that really data is king in this industry. And we have so much data, especially for e-commerce. I think we have more data compared to offline. And really
Yeah.
it's about you using that data wisely and getting those insights. And the good thing about e-commerce is you get historical data, and data is you get new data at the same time. It's constantly growing, improving, and you really get these insights. So it's really important to for you to continuously like really review those.
Cool. Yeah, that's correct. Like with data, you can see how many buyers are repeat buyers, how many buyers are new buyers, and what are the top selling products for each of these buyer types.
Yeah. And actually, to add, of course, because the way I do things currently at my work, those numbers or data are great. Like, even
Mhm.
Facebook Insights, Facebook Audience Insights, those numbers and your graphs are great. But sometimes you can look at data even in the simplest ways, like checking social media comments,
Yeah.
reviews of your product. I think you also need to look at those data points because those really give you insights on the mind or the thoughts of your customers and how they see your brand.
Correct, correct. Some of the customers actually just to share the reviews. Some of
Yeah.
them would share, "Oh, I bought this, but there are no freebies." And then when I
Yeah.
checked when they bought it on a non-sale period. So I'm like, customers are really looking for freebies already because they are
Yeah.
trained that way in at least here in the Philippines. But
Yeah.
at the same time, if you go to the Western market, probably it's also different. Like I wouldn't expect the Western market to also be expecting freebies. They just wanna it's more straightforward for them, I would say. Like if this is the product that I bought, then this is the product that I should receive. If there are freebies, then that's good, but they're not really after discounts. They're more of the quality of the product. And I think
Yeah.
for the Philippine market, they're after the prices. At the same time, they're also after the quality. So if
Yeah.
you buy something that's at a cheap price, you're not sure if that product is authentic, if it's original or what, especially for big brands. Like we would usually see a lot of resellers in the platform. That's why we also had a hard time, competing with these resellers. I
Yeah.
mean, that's their job and good for them. But at the same time, from the brand standpoint, we have to make the customers feel that our products are really authentic and we are the flagship store of this brand. So even with that, they would really want the customers to feel that way. So even with I mean, aside from marketing strategies, promo schemes, they're also big on offering customer services. So the customer services would be like if a customer chats on a beauty store, of course the customers would have a lot of questions like what shade would fit my skin tone or something like that. So they really deploy experts on beauty products to really answer the questions of the customers. So I'm not sure if in the stores of resellers they would also do that, but I highly doubt it because for you to be able to get that kind of customer service, of course you would have to employ more people who are capable of doing that, and that would take another investment from the brand.
Even for these small sellers, like, just
Mhm.
to share with you, Lars, at least my behavior for since we're talking about skincare.
Yeah.
I actually buy from, but you know this already. I'm a Shopee girl.
Yeah.
I have a like a Suki seller. Like I buy from a specific seller already for like my skincare products, and I have been buying from her for like almost a year now, I would say. And I really don't mind it. I'm not really, I feel like I'm not missing out if I go to the like brand store because yeah, like what you said, it's usually cheaper with resellers. And even this like seller, she even has freebies also. So sometimes even these small businesses or small sellers can replicate like the brand experience, somewhat of the brand experience. And I think ultimately for brands, if you want to, let's say for skincare, if you want to convert me to go to visit your official store, I
Yeah.
think it's really a matter of, you know, like what you said, how different are you? Like from this seller, like I'm still getting the same product anyway. Like so what? Like why should I buy? If it's freebies, I still get freebies from this store. So
Yeah.
how is that different? How is that, it's really interesting, I think, to for brands to figure that out. And also one thing also, you said that, people have somewhat expectations already of freebies
Yeah.
because there's already that precedent in a way or that standard. And I think, there's like that's a good and bad thing. Do you think, like, in a way that people are already expecting these promos because the industry or even the platforms are already setting these standards or these, you know converting that behavior. Like before, we weren't as voucher frenzy or as promo frenzy as we are now. So but
Yeah.
because we have set that behavior, we're also setting those expectations, right?
Correct, correct. I think it's more of a question about who is driving the consumer behavior online? Is it the brands? Is it the platform? Or is it the consumers? And if ever you're going for a different direction where there are no freebies included, how would you try to innovate? Because consumers are already, I think they're already experiencing promo fatigue because of monthly campaigns. How would you, what role or what kind of responsibility would each player in the e-commerce ecosystem would contribute? Like, how would the brand change the consumer behavior? How would the platforms change the consumer behavior in such a way that there's still a lot of traffic going to the store, but at the same time, how would they prevent the promo exhaustion? Because promo exhaustion, it takes a big toll on the sales targets, on the sales achievements of brands. Because, for example, consumers would experience the same promos again. So how would each change that kind of environment, you know? I think that's one of the bigger questions as well, that, how would the e-commerce look like in the future? How would each shape the future of e-commerce? Are they going to be introducing a lot more tools that's going to be easy for sellers to sell on their platform? Or are they going to deviate from monthly campaigns and just focus on big campaigns like 11/11, 12/12, 9/9 birthday sale? Or are they going to innovate more on the user experience by introducing, I don't know, probably holograms or virtual assistants where they can video call the customer service and, have a real time response from them? Like, for example, how you're buying from the store. Because when you buy from the store, let's say you buy a foundation, the customer sales representative can already respond to your question, like what shade would fit me or what would be the effects, right? And sometimes those virtual assistance initiatives, the customer can also bring some friends, like, hey, my friend is something like that, or like my friend needs this, blah blah blah. Or maybe that's also a good way for the customer sales representative to upsell their offers, like, oh, you can buy like a bundle deal for you and your friends. So that's also one way of, upselling their products. I don't know, maybe that's one of the innovative things that perhaps the platform can explore or the brands can explore. Because I don't think promos will be a good long-term strategy, especially for premium beauty brands. Like, promos in such a way, GWPs, gift with purchases, sure. But what is something new, like entirely new, that the customers can look forward to, not just on 11/11 and 12/12, like on a monthly basis? Like, is it just going to be around promos, or is there like a new activity? It's going to be theme based, something like that. So e-commerce is fast paced, I would say. E-commerce has a lot of potential. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of e-commerce websites or e-commerce tools and platforms that brands can use to expand their businesses. Like, for example, if Lazada and Shopee are not already working for them, perhaps they can try out Zalora, or if not Zalora, create their own website where they can have more control with the content, where they can introduce a lot more promotions in their website, like be more creative with their promotions in their website, and probably add like a video assistance feature that can help their customers have a better experience, shopping experience in their platform. Maybe that's also something that the brands can explore, or perhaps they can also expand or move to Amazon. I'm not sure, to expand their market base. So there's a lot of potential in e-commerce, I would say, that we have yet to unlock. I mean, I've been working for e-commerce for the local marketplaces for quite some time now, and I feel like I've experienced, or I'm already at that peak where I've experienced a lot of things and probably the full potential of local e-commerce. And now I'm ready to explore other opportunities
Yeah.
outside the Philippines, because I know that, the consumer behavior is different, things done are different. So I'm really excited and I'm really looking forward to whatever job opportunity that is, because I know there's a huge potential with e-commerce.
Right. I agree with most of what you said, no, especially with how, promos are technically, marketing or selling strategies.
Yeah.
They're not
Correct.
brand building strategies, and, they're good for short term, but not for long term.
Yeah.
And like what we also said, this, like if you have too much promos, this really influences brand perception and perceived value of your brand. So, promos are great, but it's not the way to go unless that's your branding, unless you're like a, I don't know, a save more brand or something wherein it's really mostly savings, then good for you. But ultimately, there's what we said, a smart way to do promos. And promos shouldn't only be the only thing that you do to get people to convert,
Correct. Correct. That's true.
because
Yeah.
it's a good strategy. And I think promos are great, especially for the holidays or if there's a season. But
Yeah.
for all season areas, or for, we talked about this, Lars, about how here in the Philippines, yeah, it's like every day, every week, every month there's a promo. But in Western countries or in other countries, it's not the case. So if
Yeah.
they're able to do that, why can't we do that? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's a society, maybe it's standards or whatever. That I like how you face those certain questions, like who's really responsible for that, or how do we want to go from here. And I think, like any other industrial revolution, we would find out the answer to that based on like how the next few months would be like, at least for our country, like as we start going back to malls, as offline stores start to pick back up, like what we said, is it either gonna change the behavior? Are we gonna stay on the same lane, or are we going to innovate, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Like right now, the pandemic restrictions are getting less stringent, I would say. They're becoming more lenient. Like tomorrow, starting tomorrow, November 4, they will lift the curfew hours already. So, a lot of people would be going out, and which is a good thing for malls and other shops as well, and maybe for tourism. So that's one of we're not sure. It's really, the pandemic plays a huge factor in this e-commerce ecosystem. Like, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to improve with everything, especially logistics? How are we going to do all of these things from now until such time where the e-commerce has to innovate significantly again? Like, when are we going to reach behavior plateau? Like, when is e-commerce gonna be not relevant anymore, or is that even possible? I think the better question is, how do we make e-commerce more relevant, more exciting for consumers, for sellers, for brands, for anyone who wants to sell their products online? So I think that's the bigger question that we have to pose here, because 1111 and 1212, these are just subsets of what makes the whole sales target program really successful. But in the bigger perspective of things, okay, after 1111 1212, what's next? Because for sure you cannot do 1-1, because people are not gonna buy, like they don't want to spend on the first day of the year, right? And they've already poured their investments, or they've already purchased in the previous campaign. So how are you going to slowly pick up your sales as a brand?
Yeah, that's true. I really like what you said, no, because even for me personally, it's not like what we said earlier. It's not a brand building thing to do. It's not like, for me, usually it goes against the principles of branding, at least for me, even. Like, promos are temporary. Brand, like, or customer lifetime value is forever. Char. But I mean, basically that's how you want to look at it also as well. So I think,
Right.
we have these thought-provoking questions at least for the future, or how things will go from promos and whatnot. But of course, my last question, since we talked about campaign planning, I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes, campaigns are still really a way to go, regardless if you have 11, 11, and 12, 12. So
Correct.
maybe can you share with us some of your tips for, e-commerce campaign planning? At least maybe we can do it like pre-planning, during the
Mhm.
campaign, and then post-planning. Like, what are your some tips that you'd like to share to our listeners?
Sure. Okay. So planning for mega campaigns or any type of campaign really takes a lot of time. So I would say is first finalize all your commercial offers, because that's where all the planning would revolve. Like the next steps, once you have finalized your commercial offers, the next steps would be what kinds of creatives would we do? What kinds of marketing ads are we going to do? Which products are we going to highlight on marketing ads? What are going to be the different marketing pushes that we're going to do? Next would be, how would your shop in shop look like? And the next would be, are your stocks enough? So if your stocks are not for these products that you're highlighting on your offers, what are you going to do? You should order more from your supplier and have them delivered before the campaign. Next would be, since we discuss about stocks, next would be your packaging supplies. Are your packaging supplies enough? Are your logistics ready? Are they ready for pickup? Are they ready for schedule? So it's a mix of commercial, marketing, creatives, and logistics as well. Do you have enough warehouse space to house all of these stocks? So that's pre-planning. Then during the campaign itself, that's when you would do your optimizations, like what I mentioned earlier. So optimizations like, are you gonna add more time slots? What are your different gifts? What are the different live streamings that you can do during the campaign? How are you going to optimize your shop in such a way that it would be more enticing for the buyers? Then after campaign, of course, that's when the customers would receive their products, their orders. So you have to be prepared with your contingency plan. So what if the customer received a broken product? Of course, you would resort to return and refund, but that's the last thing that you would want to do as a seller, because that's missed sales already. So you can either offer them a voucher, or you can offer to replace the product, or you can tell the customer we will send you an apology gift, something like that. So the post every stage of the campaign would be challenging, different sets of challenges, but you really have to be prepared. That's why you have the planning in hand. So make sure that all of the teams are well coordinated with, like you guys are all on the same page. You know which parts are moving, you know which activities to do first, so that everyone can move forward with the planning, with the campaign and everything. Then, apart from your contingency plan, you would also have to do postmortem reports. So postmortem reports would tell you these are the things that worked during the campaign, and these are the things that did not work. Then what would be your key learnings? What were your key challenges, and what are you going to do about those insights, learnings and challenges moving forward, so that you can apply them in your succeeding campaigns? So it's easier said than done. I've experienced all of them repeatedly in different campaigns. So it really takes a lot of teamwork, a lot of patience, I would say. And as long as you have a strong heart to overcome all of these challenges, then you're good to go. And the most satisfying feeling is the sense of fulfillment. Full, because at the end of the day, you have done everything for you to for you to have a successful campaign. So don't forget to savor those wins, those victories, and share them with your team. And you can add that to your list of achievements as well. So there.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you
Mhm.
said.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's true. This is really quite a tedious process, and it's really like what you said, time consuming. It's a lot of thinking, collaboration, and You know, it's really worth it, but of course, you really need to also have like the mindset, I guess, for it or the
Yeah.
commitment.
Correct, correct, correct. And don't forget to enjoy the whole process because it really takes time. I mean, you're not just about the growth of the brand, but also your own professional growth. And that's part of the process. So even if it's tedious, even if it's challenging, at the end of the day, whatever you have contributed, whatever significant contribution, you can call it your own because you know that you've worked hard for it. And yeah, just enjoy the process, and whatever you learn from these challenges, you can proudly say that I've overcome it, and I'm going to share with you how I was able to overcome it. So it's not just about your professional growth, but also the growth of the people that you're working with. And I think that's the beauty of working in an e-commerce industry as well, is that you get to learn a lot, especially you're moving and working in a fast-paced environment. But of course, you also get to savor those victories because you know that you've worked hard for it and you have earned it.
So I think yeah, that really wraps up our discussion. We really talked about a lot of things, from the
Correct.
campaigns and planning, and then really the strategy or how you can be smart when it comes to your promos and of course consumer behavior. So really there's a lot to unpack in this episode. And once again I'd like to thank you, Lors, for your time.
Yeah.
And for of course our listeners, don't forget to follow the podcast to get notified on the latest uploads. So if you want to share your thoughts about this episode, suggest topics, or collaborate, you can check me out at the Gen Z Marketer podcast on Facebook, at Gen Z MKT on Instagram, and at www.genzmkt.com. If you want to check out the previous episodes with Loris, go check those out as well, where we talked about the e-commerce landscape and e-commerce marketing.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for having me, and enjoy the rest of your week.